Who's the number one person you would want to run a 1st to 10 with?
We're talking about a famous player?
It could be anybody.
Anybody. Okay, so
CEO is this weekend, and I'll be there filming for an upcoming documentary on the history of the event. Part of that documentary features professional wrestler Kenny Omega, and I was fortunate enough to sit down with him to talk about not only CEO, but also how he discovered fighting games and how they even helped shape him as a wrestler.
I mean, fighting games have been a part of my life since a very young age. I used to always have to go to the grocery store every Saturday morning. My mom would give me $2 to rollerblade to the grocery store, which was about, 15 minutes away. And I remember that the paper was $1.52. And with whatever was left over, I was able to get whatever I wanted. So some days it was a chocolate bar, until I realized that an ice cream store very nearby had a Super Street Fighter II cabinet. And I would put in that $1 and I would see how far I could get with that $1. I would try every character. I would try to figure out, I'd try to figure out the special moves. I would try to figure out what the opponent's weaknesses were. I never ever fought another human being, but just trying to get as far as I could against the computer was always what I looked forward to the most on the Saturdays. And I think since then, that started probably my love for fighting games. I remember next, the comic book store, they had a Mortal Kombat cab. They would swap out cabs all the time. So it was like Mortal Kombat one time, Street Fighter another time. Time Killers was another one that they had. Oh, and also I was a timekeeper for my dad's hockey league, old timers league. And the arena that they frequented had a Street Fighter 1 cab. So Fighting Street. And I knew it was terrible, but I loved it. There's always fighting games all around me. And then finally, when they had ports coming out to SNES, those are the first games that I got. Like on opening day, either I would rent them or I would take whatever money I had saved up and I would buy it.
Fans of Kenny Omega know his love for video games runs deep. The man uses signature moves like the V-trigger and one-winged angel for starters. But this wasn't always the case. How did gaming, and more importantly, fighting games, become a source of inspiration for Kenny?
I remember not understanding really what I should do as a character, who I should be in the ring. Everyone always says, you need a character, you need something larger than life. You need, in some cases, you need to play out a role that someone writes for you and make that successful. And I remember that when I had a stint in WWE in the developmental system, they asked me who I was. And I said, I'm Kenny Omega. Where's he from? And I remember always being billed from Waikiki, Hawaii. I don't know why, but that's where I was from. And they said, what's your character? I don't know, I'm an athletic guy. Who are your favorites? And I'll tell them, I liked Ultimo Dragon, I liked Mr. Perfect. I liked athletic guys because I was an athlete growing up. And long story short, my tenure there wasn't very long. I stayed there for a year, it didn't go so well. I made the choice to come back, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever get back into wrestling again, until eventually I did. I thought, hey, you know what? Having a character given to me didn't work out. Trying to be just an athletic guy, there's plenty of those, especially nowadays. So what made me me? And part of my identity, of course, was video games. So I thought, I'm gonna have a little bit of fun with it. And I want people to recognize that I'm having fun with it, that I'm kind of embracing who I am. And that's when I started to implement using the Hadouken as a move. When I say that, people picture me throwing a fireball, or maybe it's an invisible fireball. But it was more like an actual double palm strike to the chest. But I would scream out Hadouken. It became one of my most signature trademark moves, and a lot of people liked it and loved it and looked forward to it when they saw it in the matches. And that made me happy, made me feel like I'm on the right path, because now I'm really being myself and I'm having fun with it. And people out there also enjoy it. Sort of on the other flip side of things, when you're studying to be a wrestler, or when you're studying tape to see how moves are performed or how to make them look as good as possible, it's sometimes difficult because there are many people that have different takes on how to do different moves. So it's hard to find study material. It's hard to find examples of a move where it looks perfect, the textbook version of a move, or a move that makes it look devastating, but still safe. And I remember it wasn't until playing, N64 games like No Mercy, where the animations for the moves were as perfect as they could be. And it wasn't until I fell in love with Tekken, where you would see moves performed a little more devastating, like as if you were using them in a street fight. And so not only would I use the N64 game's way of performing moves, I would also use all the animations for what King would use in his move set, or even like Julia, some of the people that had pro wrestling based grab move offense. And that actually helped inspire one of my moves later on down the road called Kreutz Wrath. When I was playing games on the SNES or just going to the local arcade, I would kind of spread the word via my friends, and then my friends would speak to other people, or I'd speak like to my soccer team, and then they would talk to other people, and I would find out that there are other people that are super into these games. There's guys that have a reputation for being great at Street Fighter or great at Mortal Kombat, and we would try to figure out a way for us to kind of have a meet, so we could have like these one-on-ones or like a first to fives, first to tens. But there wasn't ever, at least where I was from, Winnipeg, there wasn't like an actual scene. There weren't tournaments, there weren't locals, there weren't anything like that. And nor did I know that they actually existed. It was more just for bragging rights. So it wasn't until I really got into Street Fighter 4 where I started to really see just how deep it is and how much of a culture it really is. Once I found out about that, and once I started to see some of the streams, like the stuff on like Justin TV and things like that, like really stuff you had to dig for and look for, that's when I really started to fall in love with fighting games, and really commit a lot of time and effort and have favorites and study characters more, study matchup knowledge, and actually have like a dog in the fight, so to speak, where there were people that I would actively try to follow and cheer for, and also try to up my game as well. And I don't want to say that I thought that I could play at that level, but I wanted to do the best that I could with my abilities to be respectable. Because if maybe I ran into these dudes, I wanted to be able to hang out with them and not feel like I was holding them back, and get a couple competitive games in with them. I remember that when I had first walked into an arcade in Tokyo, Street Fighter 4 released, and I had seen just how huge it was, lineups outside the door. They would show huge monitors of the leaderboards of who the best were. And I remember that at that time, it was flipping back and forth all the time between Itazan and Darui. It was just always like Zangief and Dalsum. And I was like, Zangief's top tier in this game? Oh, that's awesome. That's another thing about me too. Anytime I play a new fighting game, I'll always pick the wrestler first. I always want to do the wrestling moves. So for me to get into a Street Fighter game after sort of a long hiatus, and now really wanted to take it serious, to see that Zangief wasn't just kind of like the laughable, kind of slow, lumbering character, and he was a threat, that got me really excited. So I tried as best as I could to follow what Itazan was doing at that time. But then as time went by, I started to watch more of like the salty sweet, like money matches. Like I'd watch a lot of Pi stuff. I became a huge fan of Smug just because he was such a fun player to watch, and just his execution was on another level. To this day, no one I don't think has the kind of execution that he does. But actually, Smug was sort of a gateway to me watching Pai Chin, who had an unbelievable Cody. And I was like, man, I love Final Fight. Aside from fighting games and RPGs and things like that, 2-player beat 'em ups are always like one of my favorite things in the world to do to kill time. So to have characters representing the Final Fight universe, and Cody being one of them, and having the option to have the knife, and just being a complete unique character, and seeing that the way Chin played him, I think it really brought me to the next level. And then I saw at that point too, BJ Unchained versus Bonchan. And I saw like, man, this is a Cody taking it to Bonchan of all people. That's incredible. So I'm really onto something if I just stick with it. I would watch the streams, I would watch tournaments, I would watch players. I would go to Taito Station at Shinjuku, and I would see Nemo sit there for hours and hours and hours, and I would see 100 win streaks, 110, 130. I was still a pad player at that time. And that's part of the reason why when I went to the arcade, I would just watch, because I wanted to participate. I wanted to fight these guys, but I only played on pad. I was just a console dude. I remember it was Sin actually that said like, why do you play on pad? Like there's such an opportunity to play against really good players and to learn if you played stick, because everyone here is going to the arcades. They're playing on the cabs. So if you got the time, you should learn. That's kind of when the light bulb went off. And I was like, yeah, you know what? What a great idea. I had like a secondhand game store near my station where I was staying. And I remember buying, it was like the equivalent of like $20. It was like, it's like a wireless like training stick for me. And I worked on it. I remember I played every day. It was frustrating. I hated it. I thought I made a huge mistake, but I just wanted to play against the best players. I wanted to play in tournaments. I wanted to up my game. I wanted to be able to participate against these dudes. Later on down the road, I remember Mark Mann had caught on that I was like a fan of Street Fighter, that I was trying to train with a stick. And he gave me my first like real stick, which was that Chung Li one. Beautiful stick to this day, like the yellow buttons, the Chung Li. It was a gorgeous stick. From that point on, I would tell anyone that would listen that I was an FGC supporter, that I love fighting games, that Street Fighter 4 was the greatest thing ever. And it just led to so many opportunities and friends that I've made down the road. Even crossover potential for professional wrestling too, that exists to this day. And I couldn't have done it without, I guess, Street Fighter, fighting games in general, and the fighting game community.
You are here, just like everyone else, for the love of the game.
I mentioned this before, but this interview is part of a larger documentary on CEO, one of the premier fighting game tournaments that merges pro wrestling themes with high-quality fighting game play. And while I had the chance, I want to ask Kenny if there's anything that the FGC and pro wrestling could learn from one another.
It's difficult because the FGC, much like, combat sports, like let's say UFC, boxing, characters are important. You have to sell the fight, you have to sell the match, you have to sell the event. But at the same time, you have to win. So if there's a specific type of method to getting to that desired outcome, you kind of have to stick to it. So I understand when, some of the best players have nothing to say. When in between their matches, they don't want to be seen. I get it. If that's what it takes to win, and that's how you're putting food on the table, you got to stick to it. But by the same token, I do believe that the FGC needs to realize that we enjoy the stories. We enjoy the characters. We enjoy the person behind the sticks. And we want to see them. We want to hear them. And I think, there are people that have been very successful at being outspoken. You look at people in our history, for better or for worse, people that have become famous or infamous for their characters. Anytime we can speak to Takedo, he usually has something profound to say. Daigo has been known for having moments of being very entertaining. You have a guy who's just beloved everywhere, L.I. Joe, for example. Just some of the best commentary teams I've, literally to the degree of me wanting to hire them for wrestling. They provide that much insight, but also a type of flavor and pizzazz to how they commentate. But then on the flip side, you do have a few players who are at the top of their game, but you put a mic in their face and they have nothing to say. When they have an interview, even if it's a written interview, still nothing interesting to say. Pre-match comments, what do you have to say? I'll try my best. You know what I mean? It's moments like that where you could truly sell yourself and sell an event or sell a fight or sell even your game at that point if you had something more to say. So I think there's a little bit of charisma and personality lacking, and that's to no one's fault really, but I would love to see more of it.
That was good. Oh, we got a stumble already to start things off.
I think if there are more instances like that, and like the K-Brad Stone Cold entrance, like the Dominion.
He's already on stage, Dominion!
Things like that, myself and Jabali carrying Smug to the ring. Cool stuff like that where there's, more showmanship, where there's more reason to care, more reason to be entertained by what goes on. If you can combine that with some real top tier gameplay where the people at home watch it and they go, I don't know how they did that. And I know no matter how much I practiced, I could never do that. Those situations factoring in and working hand in hand with one another kind of take things to another level. And I think that CEO especially helps bring those characters out of people. And I think it creates that fun atmosphere. And I think that it allows fighting games and the FGC to appear like a more fun place. Whereas, there's some more sterilized tournaments. And I guess you could even say online tournaments, you can't really see that very often. On the flip side of things, professional wrestling, what we do is sometimes heavily scripted. Sometimes everything that we do, we know in advance, sometimes. And in those cases, I would love if there were more of an unknown factor that goes into what we do. And I think AEW does a good job of that right now, where there's still a lot of creative freedom for some of our athletes. But I think that in fighting games, when there's that unpredictability, when you don't know who's going to win, how they're going to win, if a match is going to be a wash, if a match is going to be close, if grand finals is going to get a reset, you never actually know because they're actually fighting. And I think if pro wrestling could achieve more moments where there's that uncertainty within the crowd, then I think combining that with our larger-than-life characters, we could create more drama behind what we do as well.
All this talk about getting into fighting games and working to improve got me thinking. If Kenny could pick anyone, who would he run a 1st to 10 with?
Here's the thing. The answer might shock you because, Street Fighter's my game. I wouldn't ever claim to be real great at any other game. There's things I play casually, and I would just get completely washed at a tournament level. Street Fighter V, still pretty good at. You know this. You saw it. I don't want to bring up the story. But let's just say I took a half year off of Street Fighter V to come back, and I'm still winning. So I don't want to face a guy whom I might have a beef with in wrestling who's never touched the game. That does not interest me. I want to face a guy who knows what he's doing and could challenge me. And I want it to be a show. I want you to put on a show. So I want this guy to have personality. I want him to know what he's doing, and I want to win. But I don't want him to win easily. So that sort of narrows down the list a lot. It's got to be fun. Originally, do you know the Japanese commentator Aru? He's got a Grandmaster Zeku, and he's really good. I would have said him, but we've actually done that matchup like 3 or 4 times to death. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I won 3 of the 4, okay?
Oh God. Oh my God, that's it.
Oh, and there was another guy. There's another, and this is there's a little bit of bad blood there. A little bit of bad blood. But do you remember when Street Fighter V first came out? And they had that special challenge between Daigo and Lupe Fiasco. And I thought, man, what's this know-nothing dude, Lupe, doing playing against Daigo when everybody knows I'm the Street Fighter guy around here? Everybody knows it. And then Lupe had to put it in his contract that Daigo had to do the job to Lupe.
Lupe,
Oh my, he's activated. Will he throw some lightning at him?
Don't.
Oh, he's trying to uppercut.
Like Lupe could ever beat Daigo in anything, and I mean anything. We're talking even sports. Daigo could probably out-rap Lupe, if we're being honest with each other. So I wanted Lupe. I wanted him bad. I wanted to embarrass him. I wanted to make him cry. I wanted to make him so mad about it that he'd write a new song about it, like an actual good one. But that time has come and gone. I've outgrown you, Lupe. You're nothing to me. And actually, I think we're cool. I think we're cool now. We might be cool. He follows me and I follow him. But I remember when I did something for, I think it was a CEO match against Xavier Woods. Lupe tweeted it out right away. He said, hold up. What are these two nobodies doing on stage? I'm the only Street Fighter guy that should be around. I'm the Street Fighter guy. I'm like, Lupe, what are you talking about? You're not a Street Fighter guy. Hell, you ain't even a musician anymore. Who are you, dude? I didn't go that far. I wouldn't say that to him. I don't want to hurt his feelings. So it was Lupe. But hey, if you're gonna tell me that after all this time, he's still fakely supporting Street Fighter because he wants a quick payout, come talk to me. We'll have that real set. We'll put on a goddamn show, Lupe. Just you and me. I'll bring out that Alex. You bring out whoever the fuck it is that you play. And we'll see who's better. We'll see who the Street Fighter guy is. Aside from that, I think a set with Rob TV would be good.
Hold it!
Kenny Omega, I've heard that you wanted to take the risk, the ridiculous risk of riding down Hollywood Boulevard. Well, I tell you what, there's no street lights and it's a dead end for a reason. If you are sure that you are ready for that type of pressure, then I invite you anytime, any place, in any game. But I can guarantee you, it will not be pretty.